You've been told that the world rewards honesty, effort, and goodness. But look around. The ones who hold the power, who bend the rules, who command nations and companies and people, are not always the ones who worked the hardest. They're the ones who understood the rule you were never supposed to know. From the day you were born, a silent system began shaping your perception of money. You were taught to see it as scarce, fragile, moral. Save it, they said. Work for it. Be grateful when you get some. You were programmed to treat money as survival, while the powerful were taught to treat it as a weapon. That's the first divide, the psychological one. Because before wealth separates bodies, it separates minds. Machiavelli observed this centuries ago. He saw that the rulers didn't just own resources, they owned the narratives that defined them. While the masses fought to live by the rules, the powerful quietly wrote them. And this one rule, the one that keeps the rich separated from the poor, is hidden inside that illusion. It's this: money is never the goal. It's the tool for control. The poor chase it. The rich move it. One plays the game. The other designs the board. That's why you can work a lifetime, save diligently, and still never escape the cycle. Because the system was never designed for you to win by effort. It was designed for you to keep playing. When Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't talking about kings and castles. He was describing the psychology of power that still governs today's boardrooms and governments. He wrote about perception, how people obey not what's true, but what feels true. That's why the rich spend, the poor save, and the middle class worship the illusion of stability. The rich understand that value isn't real. It's manufactured through belief. When they spend, they don't lose money. They transfer belief. Think about it. A billionaire buying a painting for $10 million isn't acquiring art. He's buying a symbol, a marker of belonging. He's not trading value. He's reinforcing hierarchy. That's the game you were never taught. Money is a mirror for perception, not effort. And that's why the divide keeps growing, even when everyone works harder than ever. Because effort feeds the system, perception controls it. Every time you trade your time for money, you're participating in a system designed to drain your energy and feed the illusion of fairness. But every time someone at the top moves capital, through influence, investment, or manipulation, they're shifting the invisible architecture that defines who rises and who kneels. Machiavelli would say, "He who controls appearances controls obedience." And in our age, money is the most powerful appearance of all. Let's strip away the illusion. You've been trained to see money as numbers in a bank account. But the rich see it as narrative energy. They move it to control flow, to create scarcity where there is none, and abundance where they need it. This is why recessions destroy lives but create dynasties. When the market collapses, the poor panic, the rich prepare. When the poor hoard, the rich expand. When the poor follow morality, the rich follow strategy. Because Machiavelli taught something brutal but true. Morality and survival rarely coexist, and that's the second part of the rule. Money obeys clarity, not conscience. The poor are taught to feel guilty for wanting more. The rich are taught that wanting more is how the world evolves. So while one group prays for permission, the other group profits from hesitation. That's why the language of power always disguises itself as virtue. You've heard the words, humble beginnings, modest life, honest work. They sound noble, but they chain you to the ground, because in a system designed by Machiavellian principles, virtue without leverage is vulnerability. The world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards those who can convert perception into power. And money is the most efficient converter of all. Watch how the powerful move. They don't just earn, they influence earning itself. They decide what's valuable this decade, and the rest of the world obeys. They say energy is the new gold, and instantly, trillions shift. They say attention is the new currency. And suddenly, people are selling their focus for free. The rule repeats itself. Control the narrative, and you control the flow. That's what Machiavelli meant when he wrote that appearances hold more weight than truth. He wasn't being cynical, he was being realistic. because he understood that people are emotional creatures, and money is emotional energy disguised as mathematics. The poor think it's logical. The rich know it's psychological. This is why you can't outwork a system designed to feed on your obedience. You can only outthink it, and that starts by seeing the illusion for what it is. You were raised to be reactive, to respond to every financial crisis with panic, to every price increase with despair, to every opportunity with hesitation. Because a population that hesitates is easy to manipulate. But a mind that sees the pattern, that's unstoppable. Here's the hidden design. When the poor lose money, they lose stability. When the rich lose money, they lose nothing, because money is never their foundation. Their foundation is access, control, and perception. They know how to rebuild faster than you know how to recover. Because while you're counting your losses, they're buying your hesitation. Every economic collapse has the same rhythm. Fear rises, assets drop, the public retreats, and the elite step in with calm smiles and open checkbooks. It's not luck, it's orchestration, and Machiavelli would have applauded it, because he knew the law of perception. The one who acts first when others freeze becomes the new center of gravity. This is how money flows upward, not through theft, but through psychological choreography, and the system doesn't hide it. It trains you for it. That's why schools teach obedience, not ownership. That's why financial advice tells you to save in banks, institutions that use your deposits to multiply their control. That's why you're rewarded for loyalty, but punished for risk. Because the true game rewards those who risk perception. The rich don't ask, "What if I fail?" They ask, "What will this make me look like if I succeed?" Because they know success isn't about reality. It's about convincing the world that your version of reality matters more. That's why every product, every brand, every influencer exists, to sell perception wrapped in emotion, to turn attention into obedience, and obedience into wealth. You can see it everywhere, from politics to media to markets. The same rhythm, the same manipulation, the same hidden architecture, and it always works. Because the majority still believes that fairness exists in systems designed for control. Machiavelli would whisper, "The truth doesn't set you free, it makes you dangerous." When you start to understand this, the anger you feel will turn into strategy. You'll stop seeing money as something you earn and start seeing it as something you direct. Because that's the rule the rich live by. Money doesn't serve those who fear it. If you want to rise, you must learn to move money like a weapon, not a possession, to deploy it where it multiplies your influence, to spend in ways that create perception, reputation, and access. The poor think spending is loss. The rich know spending is positioning. That's why a CEO will throw millions into a project that might fail, because failure doesn't destroy them. It signals boldness. It attracts new alliances. It proves they're unafraid to move. Meanwhile, the average person clings to comfort, mistaking inaction for safety. But in a Machiavellian world, safety is just another form of submission. So here's the uncomfortable truth. The reason the rich stay rich isn't just because they have more money. It's because they play a different psychological game. You're taught to preserve. They're trained to project. You're told to avoid mistakes. They're conditioned to weaponize them. You're encouraged to stay small. They're expected to expand. That's why the system never changes, because both sides unconsciously agree to their roles. The poor chase security, the rich chase leverage. And leverage, not labor, builds empires. Machiavelli's rule was never about morality. It was about clarity. He understood that those who wait for permission will never lead, and those who define the game never have to play by the rules. That's the one rule that keeps them separate. Not money, but mindset. The belief that rules are tools, not prisons. That perception is power. That wealth isn't owned, it's orchestrated. The moment you see that, everything changes. Because now you can start to play differently. You stop asking, "How can I make more money?" You start asking, "How can I make money move for me?" You stop seeing the rich as lucky. You start seeing them as calculated. You stop envying them and start studying them, and that's when the transformation begins. Machiavelli's writings weren't a guide for tyranny. They were a mirror, a reflection of how power really behaves, stripped of illusions. And if you can read that mirror without flinching, you can rise. Because the truth isn't meant to comfort you. It's meant to prepare you. So take a breath. Because in the next part, we're going deeper into the hidden architecture of control itself. You'll see how wealth moves invisibly through influence, relationships, and perception. You'll learn why the elite don't chase money, but emotion, and why, once you master this, you'll never play small again. Machiavelli's shadow still governs the modern world, but it doesn't have to govern you. Not if you learn the rule, and the courage to use it. You've now seen the illusion. But seeing it isn't enough, because the system was designed not just to control your money, but to reclaim your attention once you start to awaken. The moment you begin to question, the world floods you with distractions, new goals, new fears, new financial trends, each promising freedom, each tightening the leash. That's why most people never escape. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they underestimate how deeply the illusion of fairness is wired into their emotions. Machiavelli understood that control works best when it feels like freedom. He wrote that men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. The rulers of today learn to fuse both, to make you love the system that exploits you and fear leaving it. You are told that discipline is virtue, but what they really mean is compliance. You are told that saving is safety, but what they really mean is stagnation. You are told that equality is progress, but what they really mean is predictability. Because predictable people are profitable people. That's the hidden mechanism. Keep the majority emotionally reactive, financially cautious, and morally distracted, and they will police themselves. You don't need chains when the prisoner guards his own cell. The rich never play by that emotional code. They know that money is neutral, that morality attached to it is a tool of persuasion, not a law of nature. They spend when others hesitate, and they withdraw when others rush. To them, fear is data, not destiny. Machiavelli's genius was not cruelty. It was awareness. He simply observed human nature without filters. And once you do that, you stop waiting for justice. You start using patterns. The elite understand three invisible patterns that keep them above collapse: velocity, visibility, and vacuum. Velocity. They move money faster than you can analyze it. Visibility. They hide in plain sight, turning exposure into armor. Vacuum. They create scarcity where none exists, pulling others into their orbit. Let's break these down, because they are the practical anatomy of the rule. Velocity is psychological momentum. When money moves, minds follow. A new startup, a viral trend, a sudden price surge. It's not magic. It's manufactured movement. People believe movement equals opportunity, so the first movers set the emotional temperature. The elite exploit this by launching narratives, not products. They inject belief first, capital second, results last. By the time the crowd notices, the story is already profitable. Visibility is the second weapon. The rich appear transparent, generous, or even vulnerable, but every exposure is intentional. They understand that image is currency. They design appearances that trigger trust, envy, or awe, whichever emotion best maintains attention. You scroll through them daily, mistaking lifestyle for authenticity. But authenticity in this game is another word for manipulation done well. And vacuum, the most Machiavellian of all. The rich create empty spaces and make others rush to fill them. A delayed statement, a rumor, a missing product, silence used as gravity. Because silence forces projection. When people can't read you, they invent stories that elevate you. That's how mystery becomes marketing. Every empire, from ancient courts to Silicon Valley, runs on these three forces. Velocity creates belief. Visibility maintains it. Vacuum protects it. Now, where does that leave you, the observer waking up to the design? It leaves you with power, if you can remain lucid while others react. The first practical step is detachment. Stop moralizing money. Stop labeling yourself good for saving and bad for wanting more. Machiavelli would tell you that morality applied to strategy is the language of the defeated. Detach, observe, and move deliberately. The second step is reframing what spending means. Every transaction you make either builds leverage or bleeds it. When you spend from fear, you feed dependence. When you spend with intention, on tools, skills, positioning, you're not consuming, you're commanding. The third step is control of perception. You must learn to project stability even when you're rebuilding, to appear calm while calculating, to make your silence feel like confidence, not absence. People trust what they cannot fully decode. That's how authority is born, not from noise, but from composure. Look at history. Every revolution begins not when the poor get angry, but when they get strategic. Anger burns fast. Strategy endures. That's what Machiavelli wanted his readers to understand. That emotion without architecture is chaos, and chaos feeds whoever already holds power. So, design your own architecture. Don't fight the system from below. Rewrite your relationship to it. Use its rules as levers, not cages. If they manipulate through perception, then refine how you're perceived. If they multiply through networks, then choose yours consciously. If they buy time, then guard yours like gold. Because time is the first currency of the rich. They spend it on thinking, not surviving. And that's where your transformation begins. In reclaiming the focus you were trained to scatter. There will be moments when this awareness feels heavy. When you see manipulation everywhere, in ads, in politics, in people's words. But don't let cynicism rot the insight. Machiavelli was not asking you to become ruthless. He was asking you to become awake. To see the chessboard clearly enough that you can choose your next move instead of being a move. Now, let's expose the final layer. The paradox of power. The more you chase wealth directly, the more it retreats. Because desire radiates need, and need signals weakness. That's why the rich attract money. They're detached from it, not indifferent, but unchained. They understand that wealth gravitates toward composure. When you act from scarcity, you radiate fear. When you act from clarity, you radiate gravity. And gravity, the quiet force of self-command, was irresistible. Machiavelli wrote that, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." In modern terms, it means this. It's better to be respected for your boundaries than adored for your compliance, because love given without respect is manipulation disguised as virtue. Apply that to money. Respect it by commanding it, not worshiping it. Use it to expand your reach, not to decorate your comfort. Let every dollar tell a story about direction, not distraction. Once you start doing that, something extraordinary happens. You stop feeling poor long before your bank account changes. You start thinking in terms of influence, not income, and influence attracts everything money was supposed to buy. That's the mental shift the system fears most, because the moment you stop defining wealth by possession, you become ungovernable. You can no longer be bribed with promises of more. You already own your trajectory. The elite stay rich because they own context. They frame every event, a crisis, a scandal, a war, as an opportunity to reinforce control. They never react emotionally. They calculate symbolically. That's the mastery you must mirror, the ability to turn disruption into stage lighting. So ask yourself, right now, what would happen if you treated every loss as leverage? If instead of chasing reassurance, you crafted perception? If you stopped proving your worth and started positioning it? The answer is simple. The system would stop recognizing you as prey. It would start treating you as unpredictable. And unpredictable people change hierarchies. This is how the rule can be inverted. The same principle that once enslaved you can now serve you. Because the moment you use perception consciously, you're no longer its victim. Think of wealth not as money, but as motion. Controlled, intentional motion. Each decision a current. Each silence a gravity field. Each investment a declaration of who you intend to become. The poor trade motion for security. The rich trade security for motion. That's why the distance between them keeps expanding. One side plays not to lose, the other plays to evolve. But you, now that you know the rule, can play to transform. Stop waiting to be chosen. Stop begging for fairness in a world engineered for imbalance. The elite are not divine. They're disciplined. Their advantage is not access. It's awareness. And awareness is free, if you have the courage to face it. When you start acting with that awareness, everything shifts. You speak less but say more. You buy less but build faster. You chase less but attract more. People will sense it. They'll feel that something in you has detached from the crowd's rhythm, that you're no longer seeking approval, you're observing it. And they'll either be drawn to your gravity or threatened by it. Both reactions confirm you're moving correctly, because power always disturbs comfort. And comfort is the true prison of the poor. Machiavelli's rule, the one they never wanted you to learn, is not evil. It's neutral. It simply reveals who has the courage to see through appearances and act with clarity, while others drown in morality. That's what separates rulers from followers, creators from consumers, and the rich from the obedient. The game was never about money. It was about who dares to define what money means. Now you know the rule. It's time to decide what you'll do with it. You can close this video and return to the illusion, or you can start using the illusion as material. You can keep saving for stability, or start spending for power. You can keep seeking comfort, or create control. But if you've made it this far, you already know your answer. You're not meant to obey. You're meant to design. This channel isn't for followers, it's for strategists. You've already begun your transformation. Don't stop now. Subscribe, and join a small, select circle of people who refuse to think small. Those who will use knowledge, psychology, and action to attract wealth instead of chasing it. Every like, every comment, every share helps expand this movement and brings this hidden truth to others still trapped in illusion. So, if you're ready to break free, prove it. Comment below, I command my fortune. And remember, fortune doesn't favor the good. It favors the conscious. See you in the next video, where we'll reveal the next layer of the code. It won't teach you how to earn more. It will teach you how to become untouchable.